It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
And welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Breakfast as we cover the latest property news every morning on iHeartRadio, Spotify, as well as Apple Podcasts and Amazon. It's a Wednesday morning, the very last day for January. Where did the month go? 11 months left in the year, probably time for a bit of a prediction. And that is Australia's economic growth in 2024 is anticipated to slow due to elevated prices and tight monetary policies affecting consumer spending and private investments. Now, that forecast is coming from Deloitte this morning. They say the 2024 year may unfold in two halves, with the initial part dominated by the lagged effects of policy tightening, particularly impacting the economy's sensitivity to variable interest rates. And then they say the later half of the year could witness a shift with potential monetary easing, rising real wages, income tax cuts and improved household sentiment. Factors, they say, like demographics, productivity, housing supply and green economy prospects will shape Australia's economic landscape in 2024. But challenges in skilled migration, housing stock and geopolitical tensions must be, they say, navigated for sustained growth. So that is from Deloitte. It's a prediction since we are up to the very last day of January. And we are back to the time tunnel this morning with our summer series of real estate interviews. Coming up this morning, we go back to November of last year when we spoke to Claudia Conley, the community manager from flatmates.com.au, who told us at the time that they were very short on rooms to offer people. It's a very tight Sydney market, of course, for rooms to rent out, and the regional areas are also experiencing the same sort of shortage. Is now the time for you to rent out a room? Probably. We also catch up with Lochie Reid from Launceston. He talks about some of the pricing and what you can buy just outside of Launceston. How does 280k sound? Sounds like the first home buyers are pretty excited about that. And we also caught up with Jake Caine, the president of the Real Estate Institute of Victoria. We talked about the auction numbers and also transacting. So all of that is on the way for our Real Estate Wednesday. We'll do all of that next.
Remember, we are not a real estate company. We are 100% all about increasing your awareness and knowledge for buying and selling properties. You're listening to the Summer Series on the Real Estate Podcast.
I do think a lot of people have turned to share accommodation, and a lot of homeowners have turned to share accommodation and renting out their spare room to help offset all of the rate rises and also the rising cost of living. I will say, though, for many people, it isn't just a financial reason as to why they enter into share accommodation. We have many homeowners and empty nesters over the age of 65 using flatmates.com.au. And for many of them, the financial benefit of renting out their room is just one of the many benefits. Another benefit is definitely the companionship and the safety that living with someone can provide.
Well, that's really interesting because loneliness has really sort of taken some new numbers, particularly since COVID. So is that sort of, do you think, a result of COVID and the way that people do, want that companionship if they're over that age of 60, 65?
Definitely, particularly in the regions, or if people, are from country towns or regional areas and their families may have moved to larger cities. If they're living by themselves in their region or in their area, living with someone can help, like you said, to tackle that loneliness that many Australians are feeling post-COVID.
What about some of these suburbs around Sydney and some other areas that you're highlighting, which are spiked suburbs as a result of, people looking for shared alternative living?
So yes, as you said, Sydney is one of our busiest cities and is one of the most in-demand cities, not only in Australia, but around the world. There's multiple suburbs in inner city Sydney that have hundreds of people looking for accommodation on flatmates.com.au in these areas with 0 rooms available. So if we look at Elizabeth Bay, for example, there's 188 people looking for a room to live here, and there's 0 rooms available. Curl in Sydney has 148 people looking for a room with 0 rooms available. South Coogee, 146 people looking to move here, 0 rooms available. So as you can see, there is immense demand for inner city Sydney, yet there's not enough rooms available to keep up with everyone who needs a place to live.
Now, that is kind of highlighting Sydney. Obviously, that is a real squeezed city at the moment. But what about the regional areas? Because it's not just, as you were saying, confined to metro areas.
That's right. So all across the country, we are experiencing this rental crisis, and it is touching many corners of Australia, including the regions, particularly on the mid-north coast of New South Wales and up in Queensland. There is just immense demand for these areas. If we look at places like Coffs Harbour, Byron Bay, anywhere on the beach really, we are seeing immense demand with not enough rooms available. And it's often in these areas up in regional beach towns where there are quite large houses, 4 or 5 bedroom houses even, with 1 or 2 people living in these homes. So I really want to encourage homeowners in these areas, if you do have a spare room or 2, if you're feeling the pinch a little bit, if you're feeling a bit lonely, renting out a spare room in your home could be a great way to make some additional income. The median rental price for a room in a share house across Australia is $290 per week. But if we look at places such as Sydney, the median weekly rental price here is $350 per week. So there is quite some income that homeowners can be earning from renting out those spare rooms that might be sitting empty.
Explore new property destinations where you could live with exclusive interviews covering real estate news and market insights.
Saving my deposit as a young agent. I was 18 when I first started, or 17, almost 18. It was really hard to get the deposit together, but I'm so glad I did purchase when I can, because I can see obviously there's continued growth on the horizons, and the sooner you get in, the better. And I think that's been the case for so many years. And I think it's important that you're saving every penny you can too. And there's shared equity schemes out there at the moment, particularly in Tasmania, that have been great in supporting the continued growth. And if you can get onto one of those through Bank of Us in Tasmania, then I think you're at a better chance of getting into the market sooner.
It should be easy to sort of save, shouldn't it, in Launceston? Because what else are you going to do? You might as well just save your money.
Well, you could be travelling places. But I think the cost of living in Launceston obviously is similarly, but it's not to the extent of those in the cost of living crisis in Melbourne and other places. But things are still expensive here, and wages, average sale prices in Tasmania are obviously less than those of other states, but wages too are lower, so it can be hard still for some people.
And just talking about the affordability, now, I think it was you that maybe sold this. It was a, 1960s cottage located in West Tamar. Tell us a little bit about this one, Lochie, because the price point sounds pretty reasonable at $340K.
340,000, that's right. So it's a small little township called Kelso, just out of Launceston. It's about a 45-minute drive. It's nearby, there's not much within Kelso, but nearby there's some small townships like Exeter and Beaconsfield and Greens Beach. It's a lovely little township. There's not many people that live there, but this was just a small little 2-bedroom cottage. It was renovated inside and had a couple of sheds on a small low-maintenance block, and sold it for $340.
Now, is that an unusual price, or is that just what you buy property for?
That's just what you buy property for in some regional areas. I have another one in eastern Tasmania in Winaleer, and that one's $280, and that one's under contract at the moment. There's still certainly some affordable options here.
And Launceston auctions, they're not really something that are pushed, are they, in Launceston?
No, I think whether it's because the market here isn't comfortable with the process or they don't fully understand it, I don't think a lot of agents have done. I mean, I got in a few years ago into the market, but it's never been something that's really been pushed here. And auctions, I mean, in the right market and the right property, of course, auctions work really well. But they're just not something that's commonly done here, and so we don't really see them happen very often.
Now, Launceston, tell us a little bit about the fact that it's not a large city, although it's significantly bigger than when I used to live there. Being small has its advantages, of course, being a real estate agent. So how does that help you in terms of networking?
It's great here. I find a lot of the times I go to appraisals and things, and I'm referencing sales that I've made over time, and often people say, "Oh, I know the owners of that. I know who bought that," and it's just a great way to obviously build rapport with my clients, and I find it really well. And obviously, getting listings too, it's often through referrals, and I find that that's often the way that I get my listings. And it's such a small place. I mean, you drive or you go into Coles and you see like 5 people that you know, and I mean, some people wouldn't like that, but I love it here, and I love that fact that, it definitely helps in our industry too.
Each week, we bring you in-depth real estate discussions, including inspiring stories from homeowners, knowledgeable real estate professionals and economists. Whether you're a buyer, seller, or just a real estate enthusiast, we are your ultimate property podcast. You're listening to the summer series on the Real Estate Podcast.
How much of a factor is it where vendors will want to transact and make a sale before Christmas? Because if it doesn't happen, a new marketing plan has to come into effect into the new year. It is more time, it is more money, so the focus really should be there to get the deal done. And then, of course, if we've also got swirling around in the back of our mind a possible rate rise, there's plenty of motivation to transact, isn't there?
Couldn't agree more. Yeah, I think you're bang on. Timing becomes critical. Given all of those considerations you've just laid out there, if you're not selling before Christmas, it's potentially going to have a massive impact on the amount of money you walk away with when you do eventually sell, whether that's late January, whether that's February, or even later. So you're absolutely correct there.
We were talking about this the other day. Some of the crazy bids that people are now seeing at auction time, it was reported that maybe the block has something to do with it. These incremental bids, what do you reckon? Is there a call that it's possibly television viewing that is to blame?
I think almost certainly that people watch reality television and they think that there are real world applications for those strategies. It's interesting. I've heard of these, $1.20 bidding increments, and the Real Estate Institute trains auctioneers, and every year we also host a novice auctioneer competition and a senior auctioneer competition. And if you've ever seen one of these, they are the most brutal bidding conditions you'll ever witness. They put the block to shame. The judges are trying to bamboozle the auctioneers with crazy increments. They, rather than just giving them a dollar figure, they say, actually add some amount and take it off. And so the auctioneers are actually prepared for that kind of bidding increment. Although it's unusual to see that, they are trained to handle really perverse or peculiar kind of bidding increments. I think from a strategic perspective, I read an article where an auctioneer said they don't think it's a great idea because it would irritate the auctioneer. I'd be more concerned as a bidder using that strategy that I'd irritate the competition, really. Auctioneers, they're comfortable. They'll roll with it, with whatever people put in front of them. But the other people in the crowd who you're bidding against, you don't want to irritate them. And that's a tactic, I think, that might lead people to go, I'm just going to bid up 5,000, or I'm going to bid up 10,000 or something like that. It probably inspires frustration in the people you least want to get frustrated or aggravated.
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.